Um, I Hassan, you know, he is a political scientist. Congress at the time, Minnesota Congress, Kid Al-Sariyana, أنا مسلمين تقالوا أكيد Al-Sariyana ما مسلمين تو كونغرس مينيسوتا كماتين نمو وكل كونغرس الدنتاميتا كارلوكو أسوق إيديكا. Also وقت مكادو برني ساندرز هذا مسافو معاتو بين أمريكا لا بريزيدنتي يكون فرق سجى نملكو تامي تكسجى كاي كامبين الدلكادو كدا أحرو سجى وكل تامي تكسجى أكتيفي كدا أكتيفي دون عين مرة ni afar munazamat afar shacbi taniki tanna la khatu yabreni fatimta keni partano fatimta keni kadu biso be yana keni fatimta awi akel sini haba farama afara kullu baro elletal barulu political activism participation in the political process came with the presentation in America.
My name is Hassan Chehem, and I will be giving you a presentation on the importance of political participation by the Afar Diaspora. So, how do we define political participation? Simply put, political participation means that Simply put, political participation means that a person is participating in a political process by making his or her opinions known. So, for example, right now, standing up here, I am partaking in a political activity. Just by putting this wristband on here that says Ease, the Direction of Afar State in Exile, I am exercising my political participation. So I will be speaking on two types of political participation. There's the conventional and the unconventional. Conventional political participation includes voting, volunteering for a political campaign, contributing money to a political campaign, and belonging to an activist group. For example, Salto or Ease are political groups. And by being part of that and by supporting them with my money, I am partaking in political participation. And these are activities that we expect from good citizens. And then there is the unconventional political participation, which includes signing petitions, supporting boycotts, and staging demonstrations and protest, which is something that this community is well known for. Young people, students, and people who are worried about regime changes, people who are worried about government policies, are the type of people that take part in unconventional political participation. So the question is, why do people participate in political activities? For some people, it's their political ideology. For some people, they believe that it's a duty of a democratic citizen in a democratic society. You do this by voting and by running for office. And some people do it to promote an issue or a cause that they personally profit from. And then for the diaspora community, it's to influence the politics of the home country or the homeland. So I want to focus this presentation on why it is important for the Afar Diaspora to participate in the politics of their host country, in the diaspora, in hopes of influencing the politics and policies of their host country to their homeland. So, diaspora politics. Simply defined, diaspora politics is the behavior of transnational ethnic diasporas and their relationship to their ethnic homeland, in our case, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Eritrea, and their host country, which for me would be the United States. So, what are the political aims of a diaspora group and diaspora politics? Today, diaspora communities act as a transnational political entity operating on behalf of their entire people and are capable of acting independently from individual states, and whether that be their home country or their host country. And so I have some questions here that people can ponder, I guess. What is our goal as a diaspora community? Why are we here? What brought us here? The Afar Diaspora is growing. The US, Canada, Europe, Australia. Why are we here? Why are we in the diaspora? What are our social, economic, and political goals? Whether that be as a diaspora community or as a diaspora community in relation to our home country. Are we working towards a common goal as people from 3 different territories? And so, you know, the people who are, the Afar who are from Djibouti might not have the same priorities as people from Eritrea. or Ethiopia. But what we can do here is find commonalities. For example, the East organization is looking for self-rule. So as a diaspora community, that's something that we have in common, is that in some ways that we all want a single Afar state or a homeland that we control. You know, and for Djibouti people, it could be having sovereignty in their territories. And for Ethiopia, it's the Afar regional state and having complete sovereignty over the politics and the natural resources of that region. And same thing with Ethiopia. And so we have these three different things that are kind of working towards us. But in some ways, we can find commonalities by the Afar language application. That's something that we all have in common. We all have kids who want to learn language. And so the goal is, we have that one goal, let's all come together and contribute to that. And I think in politics, especially in Afar politics, there's this misconception that we should all agree. That's why we have that's why we have a forum here. We have so many different views, which is healthy, and it's good that we're having it here. So what are we doing to influence the political process in our host countries? So there are Afar people who are in the diaspora, because they're probably done with their home country on making a new life here and trying to blend in with the community. Or there are some people who actually want to influence politics back, who maybe someday want to go back to a sovereign nation, which I would count myself in. The United States is not my country, it's not my home. Djibouti is my home, that's where I was born. And so as a diaspora community, what am I doing in the US to influence US politics regarding Djibouti? And so what drives us politically as a diaspora community? And so, again, the misconception that we all have to agree on one thing is not true. But if we can find commonalities and use the resource, we can maybe accomplish something. Another thing is, how do we react to political events in the home country? So human rights violations in Ethiopia, Eritrea should be something that should be on everyone's mind in the diaspora. And the question is, how can we collectively as a group respond to that with the same message globally? Whether you're in Brussels or in the US, you should be able to have one single message that says our people are dying there. And that message should carry the day. So how do we go about influencing policy in our home country towards our host country towards our home country? But before I actually talk about that, I want to talk about the importance of political participation for the Afar Diaspora. Why is it important for the Afar Diaspora to participate in the politics of their host country? It's because we are one people in 3 different countries. And without political and economic freedom in our homeland, a lot of us have left Djibouti, Ethiopia, Eritrea for political reasons, for economic reasons, to have a better life for our children. That's something that we all have in common, and that's something that should drive us. And when I came here in 2012, some people who were happy about Forum and some people who weren't. And here's the thing about politics. Many people dislike politics, but they need to understand that politics is pervasive, which means that it's everywhere. The road you travel on, the bathroom you're using, everything is political in life, the food that you eat. And so everything is political, and the choice that we make to be apolitical by not participating only reinforces and endorses the status quo. And so there are over 1,000 Afar people in Brussels, and how many are here? In some ways, all the people who are not here, in some ways are okay with the status quo back home. And you might not agree with that, but in some ways that is true. So how do we go about influencing how do we go about influencing policy? We do this by being organized, and by being simple in our message and the ask we're making, and by being persistent. So, be organized. What does it mean to be organized? Organizing means coming together to make a change. We know that people are motivated by self-interest, and our goal is to figure out people's common self-interest. For example, in the diaspora community, our self-interest is making sure that our youth can speak our language and know our culture and can follow our religion. That's a commonality. That's something that should bring everyone together. And we also know that people are always partly united and partly divided. And our goal should be to reinforce the unities and find commonalities. Being organized means having the ability to frame and ask questions in ways that make people not only want to answer them, but also to think deeply in unexpected ways and about the answer that might be. And so if you're telling someone a story, asking them a question regarding what we're dealing with, you should present it in a way that people can understand it, can connect with it. And so in politics, which I'm sure there's a phrase that we use in the United States, it's not what you know, but who you know. And I believe that's true across the board. And so being organized means knowing who the stakeholders are and building relationships with them. For us, that could be the EU, individual member states. It could be human rights organizations. These are people who are interested in issues that we're interested in, and so we count them as allies. And so in doing so, we figure out who are the decision makers, who are, regarding EU, regarding individual states, who makes a decision as far as US policy towards Djibouti or Ethiopia or Eritrea. In the US, I can tell you that's my member of Congress. And I do this by finding a member of Congress who represents my state and tell them this is an issue that I care about, this is an issue my community cares about. And the next step is to find people who sit on that committee. For example, the Foreign Affairs Committee would deal with issues, obviously, foreign policy towards other countries. And so that is the committee that I will try to build a relationship with. I look at all the members that are in that community and look at Afar people in those states or districts and say, this guy represents you. You need to let him know that Afar people are struggling. So being organized means having a plan and knowing what to do when it goes right and when it goes wrong. And so who are the decision makers? Do we have allies? And if so, who are they? And if we have opposition, who are they? So be simple in our message and ask. And so when you're organized, you have an idea of what you want to accomplish. You have an idea of who the people that you need to talk to are. And so be simple in our message means that it has to be a message that's simple to understand, that could be utilized by every single person who's involved. So in politics, on campaigns, we have this phrase, stay on message. And so we have people who come up with the message, and we have surrogates, people who speak on behalf of the candidates. They stick to the script, because it makes sense that everyone is persistent and everyone's using the same language. And so what does it mean to be simple in our message and ask? The goal is to connect with target audience, for example, the Foreign Affairs Committee or the EU or the member states. And our goal is to move them to act. So without a relevant message or ask, it's impossible to connect with those people and those institutions. And our message needs to be simple in the fact that it's compelling, easy to remember, and the same whether we are in the United States or in Belgium. And so are our questions or the asks that we're making, are they relevant to the people that we're giving it to? For example, if there's a drought in Djibouti or in the Afar region, I should be talking to a committee that focuses on that issue instead of a committee that focuses on human rights. And are they the decision makers, and are they our allies, and are they the opposition? So these are things that we should know, and that our message is compelling. Does it warrant immediate action? That's something that we should know before we put it out. Can people relate to our message? I think, as an example, yesterday at the EASE conference, there are other Eritrean opposition groups, and the idea is that those people are facing the same struggles that we're facing, and it should be our goal to bring them together, because we have this one issue that we have in common. And the last point I want to make is to be persistent. To be persistent means that, that you have a plan, and you have an action plan. You know what you want to do. And it's the fact that we're going back to the same people until we get what we want. And so as far as, for example, the East, they're talking to the right people, they're talking to member states, they're talking to the EU community, and the goal is to make sure that the people in the US, if they care about this issue, that they're doing the same thing to their government, and that people in Canada are saying the same thing to their government. Hey, there's a Afar community in Eritrea or in Djibouti or in Ethiopia who are struggling. And so you have all these governments who should be focused on the issue with the same message, so they all know what's happening across the board. I believe that's it.
Good. Thank you, Hassan. This is very important. Message, you know, got the importance. You know, I think, you know, I remember 1991, the Fena Venesaku, no, the 92, the Fena Venesaku, Sinam Sehnehi, Wokilne Ambari Mara Eritrea, Isaias Party, K, TPLF Marayame, Tenihi, Wokili, Adomara Nusehne, Womara, convinced up the Heni Nekiri, no, say Namara. Nano, I did that look no matter, I don't must be no more cases, Heineke, never look so lucky again. It was معنا كان جيسيس نما جيس نما سارة كان جيس نما عادي أو جونتر شرودة يعني نمو دوما يمكنها إيش المحتيات فدانا محفظ مشاكل مالية تريو كي توبيا إنكي بارو محتي يحب نمو سارة كره نيجري ميتي عفرة حاجة دي لديها بس محمد كمرة أكتو لينه. So that is why advocacy group نك فديملك عدو مرة لكنا ما يابانا وحدي مو مرة ينكحسيني. So this is good, you know, to find political ally. Okay, organization takai kita kai nalina barolu political involvement abnam fatibita. If you don't participation abe neki, there is no one will remember you. You have to go to the people. You know, persistence. This is very important. Persistence. Persistence for the mahtiai. Kullu wa'di woti al yaqtam fatimta. You never stop. Kullu wa'di. ووتي الكل واحد يعطيكي إنك يروح تنام كوتا به كو حتى مرة يا ماتري. So this is very important. حسن our presentation أبي تيا very important. نانو إنكينها we have to get an ally. Ally تادو it's not only white people. It can be an Ethiopian. It can be an Eritrean. Common interest لمرة ومرة لقح النكي نه حتى نكذي. حتى في النكي we can go to Ethiopian people other than Afar. حتى فنانة حتى تكلنا حتى تجد هنا وثما مشاكل إنه ينبرك نمفردين. We have to transcend away from ourselves too. You know, we have to get involved. That's important. Kini itu message akil untuk tak sampai dalam sebagai